Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the finale of The Undoing. A great episode, a great finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, we are picking up right with Grace finding the hammer inside her son's violin case, and it's like, all right, you need to talk to me right now. And it's like, where'd you get this? She found it at that little summer home they went to, where they ended up eventually running into Jonathan. But it's like, she's like, I found it. He's like, I found it there almost after we got a little after we got there. He found it like a fireplace. And so he believing like, she's like, why didn't you tell me? She's like, if I told you, you would have turned on Dad. You would have said that he'd done it, and you would have turned on him. I mean, hell, even without the evidence, you turned on Dad. So for him, his desperate need to protect his dad, he took the weapon. Now Grace has to present this to everybody. Haley's there, Franklin's there, and even Jonathan. And it's like, okay. And then Jonathan's spinning and being like, all right, someone could have hidden it there, like kind of making it seem like, I think he was basically saying that Fernando could have done it. And it's like, how would he have known to hide it there? It's like, well, me and Elena shacked up there from time to time. And it's like, Franklin was pissed. He's like, in my family home, you son of a bitch. But then it's like, okay, maybe there's some evidence up there that can exonerate me. And it's like, actually, I put it through the dishwasher twice. And Jonathan was pissed. He's like, what? He's almost like, what the fuck would you do that? He got super aggro. I mean, to be fair, it makes sense because it's like, well, that might have been enough to exonerate you. But now it's like, okay, now I'm screwed. Now, Haley is in, she's in lawyer mode. All right, she's like, okay, legally, she's like, honestly, I don't know that that's actually the murder weapon, so there's nothing necessarily pertaining that I should and need to turn this in. Like, she goes in the lawyer mode of trying, it's like, I've got to do whatever I got to do to protect my client. She almost goes a little Saul Goodman here, where it's just kind of like, all right, she's willing to cross the line because obviously she said it herself, she's in this for the muck, so it's like, all right, so what I'm going to do is, I would, if I was, I'm not advising you to get rid of the evidence, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And it's like, Franklin's the most being like, you got to be out your damn mind, Haley. Why would you? It's like, I'm not advising you to do that. Because it's like, but the fact is that shows you like, I mean, to be fair, I think it's about reputation, because it's like, I took this job on, and it's like, yes, I have a moral it's both a moral obligation, but also probably a court mandated obligation as a lawyer to, like, there's evidence, you have to. And obviously it's like, so this kind of shows you how far Haley might be willing to go, maybe not just in this case, but any case that, who's to say that the fact is she was a little too comfortable going, might want to destroy some evidence. So either it's because she strongly, is willing to do whatever it takes to win. So like, who's to say, the fact that she jumped on so quickly makes me think, yeah, she's probably done this before, lawyers, right? So in that situation, and it's like, Jonathan's like, okay, Grace, I need to talk for you a little bit. He's like, he found the murder weapon. So, and she's like, what are you suggesting? He's like, I don't know. He knew about the affair. I was like, you're throwing your son under the bus? Which, I'm not going to pretend to be innocent myself. I was like, the kid did it. He was acting all weird last episode and everything. But now in retrospect, it makes sense why he was acting like that, because he got rid of the solid piece of evidence that suggested his dad did it. And he was looking at the court case because he was legitimately like, oh my God, we get to be a family again, that everything's going to be okay, that everything's going to work out. Like, legitimately being the innocent kid that he is, he was hopeful that that would be the case. But he's up there suggesting this, and Grace is like, are you out your damn mind accusing our son of doing this? Because obviously if they turn the evidence over, that's extra reason to destroy it, because if they turn it over, it's going to look bad on Henry, that they're going to think like, oh, he's going to have impeded the trial, the case and everything, tampered with the evidence. So like, the fact of the matter is, they will bring him in, and he'll probably get in trouble because of all that too. And I love that, like, Jonathan goes back in there, and then Henry's like, I heard everything you said. He was like, fuck you. You were trying to throw me under the bus and suggest that. He's like, no. When this is all said and done, the real me and the real us will go on that trip we were always playing. He's like, come here, son. I was like, I'd be pissed if I was Henry. I was like, you just threw me under the bus. You were suggesting I'm the one who committed the murder, which is sad, because even Grace was pointing out, he literally he did something terrible for your stupid ass. He got rid of evidence because he was trying to protect you, because he's so desperate to protect his dad, so desperate to believe his dad is innocent, even though he got rid of the evidence or tried to, clean it. I mean, that speaks volume. I mean, to be fair, he probably never had really any alone time to dispose of the weapon, so that's probably why he kept it the entire time. Like, he can clean it, and so that even if someone found it, they wouldn't know it. But I think that's the main reason why he kept it. He probably never had enough alone time where it's like, if he left on his own to dispose of it, it would have looked suspicious. He couldn't just throw it away in some regular trash can and be like, what the hell is this? It would have, because he also knows he couldn't do it around Grace, because Grace would have used it as an opportunity to immediately throw that literal hammer of the law at her dad. Same thing for her grandfather. Same thing for Franklin. So it's like he was that's why he really didn't really have too many opportunities. He had to make sure he would have to dispose of it in a way that they wouldn't. But it is kind of interesting that he's been sitting on that the entire time, because there is a part of him that did immediately, finding it there and with everything stacked on top of each other. He didn't want to believe it, but there is still a part of him that always knew on some level that his dad did it. So it's just like, oh, dude. And so that complicates things in that regard, but they have to get rid of the evidence. So it's like, all right, let's go to court. And now it's a situation of like, all right, so how are we going to handle this mess of a situation? It's like, all right, so Jonathan gets put on the stand, and obviously Haley's trying to point out, like, obviously, yes, he's like, yes, well, you can say what you want to about me. I'm a cheater. My semen was found inside of her. Yes, you can see me as a suspect, but that does not mean I'm the murderer. The fact of the matter is, he tries to spin it to be like, I cared about Miguel. It's because of, like, when you obviously as a doctor, you're not supposed to get too close to your patients. Like, you're supposed to be able to keep that distance. But obviously for him, it's like, he began to think of, like, Miguel as kind of one of his own son, and obviously, like, the relationship he had with Elena. So it's like, I care deeply for him. So I would never do that to someone I care about, especially Miguel. Like, I care about him deeply as well. So I would never do that to him as well, But then the prosecutor throws it out there. It's like, okay, but why did you run? You claimed you loved Elena. Look at her, Jonathan. The fact of the matter is, you claim this is someone you love, so when you found them like this, why didn't you immediately call the police or an ambulance? It's like, well, I knew she was dead. Okay, still, why didn't you call the police? You ran. Okay, what happened to the suit you were wearing? He's like, I took it to the dry cleaners. It's like, okay, so you ran, yeah. And it's like, oh, but before you bounced, what did you do? Oh, you went home. He left out that juicy nugget. I went home and had sex with my wife. I'm like, and obviously Grace is supposed to hold it together, because Haley was like, you can't show any emotion. You can't wince, because they're going to be like, oh, she thinks he's guilty. She can't smile, because they're going to be like, oh, like she's insensitive to this whole thing. And, so it's like, no matter what you do, people are going to look at your reactions in a certain way. So she has to keep it stoic. He has to be the one that's like, whatever happens, whatever you're feeling, feel it, show it. To make him more sympathetic to the jury and stuff like that. Everything he's feeling. So, obviously, that didn't necessarily go too well, obviously, when the prosecutor had her chance at him. Obviously, later on, she brings Miguel up to the stand, and obviously kind of pokes hole in Fernando's, like, alibi, because it's like, okay, you've seen your parents argue about it, and it's like, yes, and then fight, and then it scare you, do they scream? And it's like, oh, pain. Obviously, she needs enough wiggle room of creating another suspect. Obviously, they laid the groundwork in some other regards, but they need to kind of hammer this home, no pun intended, to make it more so like keep up with the narrative that the cops are so focused on Jonathan that they weren't, because she's like, I don't need them to go after Fernando after this. If they do, oh well, lo and behold, who cares? At the end of the day, all I care about is presenting enough reasonable doubt that, like, maybe there's someone else that Jonathan isn't guilty. So as long as that I've done that, Jonathan's the one that gets away with it. So, gets off the, doesn't get charged with everything. So it's like, that's all she needs. And obviously Fernando came storming in, calling them all disgusting because what they did to his son and manipulating him like that. But then, like, was it like, I think it was before all that went down. Yeah, it was way before that Grace, she was having a conversation with her dad because she was thinking about all of this. And so her dad was like, you're normally someone who can see through, see how situations are going to end. And it's like, at the end of the day, what do you want to do? Because she had a conversation with her son, Henry, she's like, do you want your dad back in your life? Do you want us to be a thing? And he asked it back to her. She's like, don't ask a question with the question. Don't question it. Don't answer a question with a question. But for her, he's like, I want to hear your response. And she's like, I want to do what's best for you. So there is that part of Henry that's like, he still wants his dad in his life. So she has to decide what she's going to do. She calls up her friend Sylvia, and she's like, I need you to do something. I was like, okay, what's this all about? I mean, it was like, okay, either you're going to ask her to get rid of the hammer for you, or you're going to, or mallet, whatever you want to call it, or she would have something else at play here. So she's like, hey, she tells Haley, I'm going to go on the stand. It's like, what are you going to say? She's like, I don't really know where you stand in all this. There's no way my husband could be capable of doing this, and that's what I'm going to say. So she gets called to the stand to testify. And obviously, it's like, it's like, yes, not being able to see someone for being a cheater and stuff like that. Yes, that's a surface thing. Knowing someone that she's like, because I'm good at analyzing people. Yes, because even I kept throwing out there, it's like, I kept saying therapist, so you're a psychologist, so how could you not know? But it's like, you're able to read people in the sense of like, you're able to know who they are. She's like, I know who my husband is, what he'd never hurt, he's not violent, yada, yada, yada. And then it's like, in my opinion, there's no way he could have done this. Then the prosecutor proceeded to like ask her questions, being like, yeah, certain things obviously didn't line up. Because it's like, you say that your husband's not violent. Has he ever laid a hand on you? What about what you said to the cops about him putting his hands? She's like, he didn't want me to scream. It's like, yeah, what about this message to the 911? Oh my God, my husband's here. I'm so she's like, I'm terrified in the moment. And I was like, okay. So I was like, you guys are technically on the same side, aren't you? I was like, because that's what Sylvia went in the bathroom to talk about. So it's like, yeah, and you see it kind of start playing out where it's like, and then she throws out stuff only Grace would know about. Yeah. What about his family? I'm like, okay, here we go. And then like she proceeds to bring up everything, like obviously the whole conversation that Grace had with Jonathan's mom. It was so beautiful, like breaking that down about like how, like, yeah, his sister, the tragedy, also him not having empathy, his family surrounding him, hoping that once the shock wore off, he'd be nope. He never showed any remorse, And I love how Grace handled it, because she tried to make it seem like I'm put in this unfortunate situation. Because you saw him perk up the moments like, when you talk to I talked to his mom recently, and Jonathan popped up like, wait, what? Like, what did you just say? When did hell was that? It's like, you talked to her like, what? That look on Jonathan's face, like, he got completely caught off guard. Haley's trying to object. The judge is like, nope. So it's like, dude, that moment, that's that tension, that courtroom drama aspect of it. You're like, oh, shit. So it's like, basically the prosecutor tried to twist it to be like, you've kind of got bias in this situation because you want to believe so wholeheartedly that you know the person that you married, that you want to believe, even though you might have this feeling about the truth about your husband, you're kind of denying it because you want to believe the person you married. And I think in the beginning she did, but ever since like that situation with their son, I think it changed everything because she wants to do what's best for him because of the evidence. Even the fact is that your own son thinks she did it. I think that cemented it more in her head, like, I think he actually did do this, so she wants to get him out of their lives, and so it turned that whole situation around in him. Grace, at the moment she left the stand, Haley and Jonathan dogging her, she left with her dad, her friend left with them too, and Jonathan whispering in Haley's ear, she fucked us. I was like, okay, here we go, the mask is cracking. And I was like, because I won't lie to you, the entire time I was like, did he actually do it? Because despite everything, I was like, okay, he looks super guilty, but I kept thinking like, it's got to be someone else. Because obviously the show does a really good job of making you think, yeah, like everything's point towards him, but maybe he did do some shitty stuff and did some idiotic stuff. But even the prosecutor pointed out, you are a surgeon and your whole point is not to crack. But I mean, humans are humans, they're crack, but it's like you're a trained professional. So obviously you wouldn't have cracked under the pressure of that circumstances. You would have been basically able to look at it logically and be like, yeah, it might point at me, but I need to call in. So it's like, the prosecutor was saying like, you planned it. You thought of it meticulously to run away. It wasn't like you were in shock and it's like, no, you were able to keep your calm under the situation and just bounce. I mean, but like, because it, like I said, it looks guilty, more and more guilty as everything came up about like what he did afterwards. But it's still the thing of like I said, I just get the feeling like someone actually did like, it's obviously like your head bounces between so many. Like I said, at one point I suspected her friend Sylvia. At things kind of point to like maybe some stuff with her dad. Obviously stuff with Henry. And you kind of maybe thought Fernando at one point in time, but obviously you'd always kind of think maybe Grace did it. But still, like, after that, obviously, like, her son wasn't too happy about it, but obviously his grandfather is like, well, what do you want her to do? The fact of the matter is, because if she had turned the hammer over, it would have led to you getting in trouble, so she did what she believed was the best option for you. And obviously, he's texting with his dad, and we get the back and forth, because like, even Haley was like, no, you're saying that this is my fault. It's like, no, this is your fault. You're the one that didn't get rid of the damn hammer. The fact of the matter is, how stupid could you be? And the fact of the matter is, it's like Grace was on your side. She was at one point in time because she didn't want to believe, but, your mask started cracking and she kind of started, even though it's like, Stan, she was like, I know who and what my husband is. And the moment she's got the tear in her eyes, it's because for the first time in forever, she is finally seeing him for who he really is. So now you see him drinking by himself, texting his son, and you're like, it's cutting back to the situation. You're like, so you did do it, you saw. I mean, it's not too much of a surprise because they set it up last episode that he has no empathy. And so that brings into question everything he's ever done. Plus, all he's done is lie. So it's all self-preservation in his part, because the whole conversation on the stand too was about, what is a narcissist and them having no empathy, only really caring about themselves and being so absorbed with themselves. And that's kind of Jonathan. So he ends up texting Henry and is like, hey, breakfast, this might be our last time. I was like, oh boy. And he's drunk, because I was wondering like how they're going to handle it. Are we going to get revealed like, oh no, he actually didn't do it? Like I said, even at the end, I was still like, maybe there was some part of my brain that's still like, maybe he didn't do it, but I was still kind of, yeah, he did it, didn't he? But then but as the scene got on, I won't lie to you, I got so tense. I was like, dude, this seems like a murder-suicide type of situation where like he's going to kill his son, and it's like, it's like you, because Henry's kind of his pride and joy, as he says, like Henry's his legacy. It's like you, your mom, and every one of my patients, you're my legacy. But part of me is like, oh, he's going to kill them both. He's going to kill himself and Henry, because I thought it was going to be his way to kind of have a middle finger of like, Henry's going to die with me, that narcissism. But to be fair, well, because also that's the thing, like, he is narcissistic enough not to also kill himself because, but he's, it's a complicated thing where you're just kind of like, at the time, it didn't sink into my head. It's like, someone who's narcissistic like that probably wouldn't kill, but it maybe because for him, it's like, I'm so narcissistic, I won't let myself be captured. Like, it's like, because me being arrested and going to jail for this tarnishes my legacy. As long as I didn't get technically, they can say what they want, but I was never officially convicted of it. So my legacy still reigns. Maybe that could be his justification for it, But obviously, like, they get the police involved. Franklin and Grace are in a helicopter as he's driving along. Like I said, it's just the entire back when they cut back to that, and he's like, "Dad, where are we going?" And he's just like, "Oh, don't worry," And it's just like, "Oh, dude, you get feeling more and more intense," especially as it cuts back to the crime scene, because it's like, why did he kill her? And we finally find out it's because she ended up talking about the fact that she wanted to actually get close to their family. So like, she was like, Grace, your wife is actually really nice. And she's like, maybe Miguel and, Henry could get close. He could be like an older brother. And it's like, no, you're going to stay the hell away from my family or I'm going to hurt you. She's like, you're never going to hurt me. You love me. And in that moment, because she didn't know who she was dealing with, he's a narcissist, like, who has no remorse or, because it brings into question whether he really cares about people or whether people are just a means to an end for him. It's just kind of like, because it brings into question, did he ever really love her? Because he's up here shaking and says, oh, I loved her. It's like, she was kind of a means to an end. Maybe same thing for Grace, And so seeing what he did, I was like, oh shit. Because she's like, you're never going to leave me. He bashes her head against the wall. I was like, Jesus. And then he like, oh, you said you thought I wouldn't hurt you? I wouldn't leave you? Well, I just left you. And I was like, okay. I was like, so did he? He's walking away. She tried to attack him. And in response, he attacked her. Even to the more morbid part of not, when he hit her the first time, he killed her. He hit her again. Turned her head. Closed her eyes and proceeded to bash her face. And you're like, Jesus. And the entire time that's happening, he's up there smiling, having fun with someone. Like, dude, you are next level psychotic. The entire time he's up there laughing and telling his son, "Oh, sing that song of yours." I'm like, ha 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 ha. Ugh. I was like, it made you uncomfortable. And he's like, "Dad, the police." He's like, "Nah, fuck them. This could be our last time." And it's like, "Oh, that bridge, it's not as great as it used to be. Does it make you think of anything else?" Obviously relating to like this whole situation. And then he's driving, and then Henry's freaking out. That truck is coming out. I was like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. And then he crosses the bridge. I'm like, oh God. And then he gets out of the car and he's about to jump off the bridge, but Henry stops him. Cops show up. Grace runs. She's like, "Jonathan," she's like, "No," because obviously, asking for Henry. And luckily, Jonathan stops, and then Henry goes over to Grace. She grabs him, and he's like, "Grace, come on, hug me." And it's like, come here. And he's like, "Grace, Henry," and they both leave him there. The police are there, and he gets arrested. You're like, Jesus. Woo! So everything kind of everything kind of works out at the end. But like I said, I just thought that was so neat to make it seem like, hey, maybe there is more to this. Maybe he did do it. Oh, no, in fact, he did do it. And I think that's a really nice thing, making it that it was him the entire time and not making it someone else. Because that shows you how much of a liar he is, how much of a manipulator he is, that the entire time, every tear he's ever shed, just how fake. I mean, they explained it to you last episode, but even then, it's still just to put it in question, like he was the one who did it the entire time. And what I also thought was neat was that's the end of the episode. That's the end of the series, because it's one of those things where you're like, I don't need a whole episode. I need me a couple more minutes to show me the aftermath of this, because their lives are still turned upside down, because it's like all of their lives were turned upside down the way it was, because it's like, oh, maybe he did it. A lot of people thought he did it, so their lives became complicated. But now on top of that, you're like, he definitely did it. Now you all know he did it, so what are you going to do about it? So that's definitely going to be interesting. Like it's one of those things where you're like I said, I don't need a full episode. I would just need to know what the aftermath of that was. Like, what did I mean, obviously Jonathan goes to jail. Obviously, what did they do with the hammer? They had to have gotten rid of it, dispose of it. But obviously everything points towards him doing it. Plus, I'm sure basically kidnapping your son does not help your case in the slightest. So I'm sure that's just going to look worse and worse on him in the long run. But still, the fact is that shows his narcissism, because he almost thought it was going to. I mean, how did you think this was all going to work out anyway? Like, I mean, but to be fair, he thought he was going to get away with it, because, everything was kind of going into his favor until Grace screwed them over, because as they put it, like, because that's his wife, because of spousal privilege, like in court, like, if the prosecutor had brought her, if they had brought her up, like they wouldn't be able to, like she couldn't be used to testify against him because of spousal privilege, but because the defense did, it allowed them to kind of cross-examine her like that. And it presented them an opportunity, because everyone figured it out, being like, not just everyone in the courtroom, but analysts being, and on news and stuff, being like, oh, they definitely were working together behind the scenes. I mean, I guess there's nothing like illegal about that, but I guess there's no way to fully prove that, so I guess that's why you're able to kind of, like, that's one of those gray areas of the law. But like I said, it's just like to think that it is over. I think that, I mean, it's a great ending, but it's still, like I said, one of those things where you're like, I want to know more, because there were some things that were never answered, like, because some other people have hinted at the thought too, like, some of this stuff made it seem like there might have been something between Grace and Elena, but it seems like they never really bring it up, so maybe there never was. So I'm assuming the reason why Elena drew Grace naked was because she had never seen her naked, that it really was just coincidence that Grace was like walking by her place all that time and stuff like that. Which makes you even go like, remember when he questioned her, what was that last episode? Why were you walking by her place after? That was either last episode or episode 4. One of those episodes, he was like, why were you walking by her place? It brings that into question, like, you got the audacity to question me, like there's something suspicious here, considering the fact, but maybe that's his own narcissism, like, why were you there? Did you see something? Do you know something I don't know? That's what but I think because Elena, obviously, as we can see, was obsessed with Grace, because she wanted to keep up her affair with him while also being besties with Grace. And it's like, oh, like, we have a daughter together, so also, like, my son could be with your son, and he could be like, oh, like, it was almost like a game for her, like, so I think it was, once again, it's a sad situation of neither one of them knew who they were involved with. Grace didn't, because obviously he wants to try and spin it like, oh, this is the real me, like the one who committed murder. No, that wasn't the real me. Basically saying like some people let like love and stuff, he basically let it get the best of you and stuff like that. But then like Grace was replaying what her dad had said. You were killing someone out of passion. It's not great, it's not good, but it's understandable because it's very human. But to kill someone like that after they're already dead is a monster, and it shows you like he's a monster. It shows you who he's really, like I said, because as the episode after that courtroom, after as he says like, Grace, she fucked me, you fucked up, Haley kind of snapping at everybody. It's like that's where the moment you saw his mask start to crack. It was completely destroyed. That mask was completely destroyed when he was riding with Henry, but still, a great episode, dude. A great show altogether. That I love that it is something that, hey, it's a one and done story, completely told. So, like I said, it's not like I would want a season 2. You could anthology this if you wanted to. I guess you could, but I'm perfectly fine with like a story just being on its own. Like you don't have to kind of, because what I was thinking is you could kind of do something similar to The Sinner. Make it a different, not even like, you don't even have to necessarily make it the same detectives and stuff like that, like The Sinner does. Like you could do it something similar to that, but I think it's perfectly fine as the one and done. I'm assuming the book. I'm curious to look into it, and then let me know if you've read the book. Was there any differences between the book and the TV show? Like obviously there are some changes, but I'm curious, like, were there any changes at all? Like, I mean, did this play out the same way in the book, or is it the circumstances and stuff like that? But yeah, I think that's really all I wanted to talk about. But till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.